Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of our Farming RPG tutorial series. While we were gone, we touched up a little bit on the title screen, made it look a lot better. And let's touch up the scenes as well to make it that we can't see the world's boundaries. So we add some terrain and stuff outside of the map, and we can make it so that the player can see a little bit of the next scene as he walks towards it, so it won't look so awkward. And then we can cover it up with some distance fog. So we're going to pick up where we left off, which is from the incubation. We're going to handle the spawning of chickens. So first up, we need the naming prompt to come up when the egg is hatched. So to that end, let us go over to our essentials prefab. And let's create the naming prompt. It's gonna be a lot like our yes no prompt, so let's duplicate it. I'm gonna insert the input field. Okay, now that we have this set up, we'll have to create the script that handles the naming prompt. So to that end, let's go to our scripts folder. Under UI, create a new script, call this naming prompt. It's going to be a lot like our yes no prompt, quite similar in logic. So what we first need is the prompt text. So we'll use unityengine.ui. We need the prompt text and our input field. And we also will need a action. So we'll use system. Now, our yes no prompt was pretty simple. The user selects either yes or no, and then the selected action executes. But in our naming prompt, we want to take in the string because we want to take down the name, take note of the name that the player has set, and get it to work. So let's use action. It takes in the type string. I'll put this on, call this onConfirm. And this will be in its parameter. And then over in our confirm function, so when the player selects a confirm button, first we want to invoke whatever we had on the onConfirm action with the input field .text passed in to the string type. And then we'll reset the action and close the panel. And let's assign the variables in the inspector. Naming prompt. Prompt text is prompt text. Our input field is the input field. So we've assigned the variables. Let's get to UI Manager. Right. So under this section, just rename this to prompts. Declare new variable. Same logic as the trigger yes no prompt, but instead let's make a region, and in a similar fashion, name this trigger naming prompt. So first we open the panel, and then we activate it accordingly. So first we have to take in the string, which is the message, and the action on confirm callback. Okay, so with that, we should be able to get the naming prompt up and working. So let's do a little bit of checks over in update eggs. We can remove this bit and handle the chicken spawning now by throwing out a naming prompt. And we need a action. So I being the string, the input string. So all it does now is the prompt will pop up saying name this chicken, and then once I've named it, it's going to debug.log whatever I've named it. Let's see what happens. Don't forget to assign the naming prompt over in UI Manager before disabling it. Don't forget to set the confirm action to confirm. There we go. There, it works. But as you can see, we were actually incubating 2 eggs. So by right, we should be naming 2 chickens, but there was only one naming prompt that was triggered. So what probably happened was that the naming prompt was triggered for the first egg, and then like as we were keying in the value of the first egg, the other egg hatched, and then it overrode the other one. So that's not what we want. So we should create a way for it to queue the other prompt so that the other prompt will activate once we're done with the first one. So that way prompts can stack. So to that end, let's add another event, another action. So this one, the first action calls when you first click the confirm button, and this one will be called at the end of everything from complete. And then we can add this over here. And then we should create another function to queue whatever actions you want to queue here. Queue addition. Then now over in UI Manager, we can set up the queuing system. So what we're doing is if we find that the naming prompt is already active, that means it's already in progress. So what we're going to do is we're going to call the same function again. We're going to queue it. And then we stop the code execution here. And let's test it out. Yep, so we named the first one. And then the other one. There, so now we have 2. But then it doesn't reset after we've named the first one. So let's do the resets properly. So we should also reset the input text. There. That's working as intended. And now that we have our naming prompt working, we should work with actually saving this data over and spawning the animals. So first, we need to work with data. So we'll need a way to store this information of the type of animal we're working with. So to that end, let's create a new scriptable object, call this animal data. And very much like our character data, we're going to make it a scriptable object, first and foremost. And then we'll create an asset menu. And pretty standard stuff. We need the portrait. And since animals can be purchased, we also need the purchase price. And then the produce. So in the case of our chickens, it would be egg. And finally, the location that the animal should spawn in. So in the case of our chickens, we should expect to find them in the chicken coop. And if we have pigs, we might find them in the barn or something like that. We'll use Scene Transition Manager's location. And that should do it. Now let's go over to our resources folder. Create a new folder. Call it animals. And let's create our chicken entry. It's under animals, animal. Call this chicken. And set this to 100. It produces an egg. And it should spawn in the chicken coop. How about instead of calling this building, call this location to spawn. There. Now, the animal data contains the generic data that we have of the animal type. But each instance of the animal is going to be different because the player is going to have a different relationship with each animal spawned. So to that end, we also, like our characters, we also need to create the NPC relationship state with the animals. So let's create a new script called this animal relationship state. And it's going to inherit from NPC relationship state. Now we see there's an error here because we need to set up some constructors. Over in relationship states, we have 2 constructors. We're gonna overwrite them. So first, what is different from our base class is that it's going to also take in a animal type. So whether it's a chicken, a sheep, or a pig, or a cow. And then we're going to set up the constructors. So first, let's set up this constructor. So it's going to take in the name, the friendship points, and it's also going to take in the animal type. And then the friendship points. This is for when we're loading in an existing game. And this will inherit from our base name and friendship points. And the only difference is we're going to set the animal type. Let's do this for the constructor with a name as well. The reason why we don't have to set up all of these is because it's already done in our base constructor. So it's just going to follow this. Oh, the only difference is there's an animal type now. Okay, so now that we have our relationship, state, and the data, let's run over how we're going to create the animal. So first we need a... So over in our incubator, right now, when the chicken spawns, first there's going to be a naming prompt to name the new animal. Then once you accept it, it's going to be added to, much like our relationship stats, there's going to be a list, a little list that we have, and then it will be added to it with all the data, the relationship state and everything, and you can save and load it back in. So to that end, we also would need to create something like relationship stats, but for animals. So let's create a new script and name it, you guessed it, animal stats. It's not gonna be very different from our relationship stats over here. Gonna be so we're going to declare a list. It's going to be animal relationship states. And it starts a new list. Let's call this animal relationships. Now, unlike our relationship stats, where each character, the character data actually corresponds to the relationship state, we do them with instances, right? There can be multiple chickens, but there can't be multiple beds. So we'll also need another static list of our animal data. Oh, there's animals. And since we put all our animal data in the resources folder, we can do resources.load all of type animal data in our animals folder. And then we list it using system.link. Should do it. Let's create a little helpers function to get our animal type of a string. This is why we converted it to a list, so we can just do animals.find and return it. And now on to the actual functions. So first we have to settle the start point, which is this. So we'll create a new function for this start animal creation. And it will take in the animal type. But we're not going to just handle chickens. We're gonna handle, in future, we're gonna have sheep, we're gonna have cows, we're gonna have pigs, all sorts of animals. So let's have this prompt be give your new and now we'll need the function to initialize the animal. So once we settle on a name, it's going to create a new animal. It's gonna be a animal relationship state. It's gonna take in the name just from the input string. So now what we can do is over in incubation manager, it's handle chicken spawning. First we need to get the call this chicken. Make sure it's exactly how we named it in the resources folder, else it will not work. And then animal stats start animal creation chicken. Okay, so the prompts are still there, but we have no way of seeing our changes take effect. So let's make it so that the new animals will actually spawn once they are created. So let's create a new script in our animals folder. Call this animal spawn manager. And all it's gonna do is render the animals. So how it's going to work is we're gonna look through all animals. So we're gonna check the animal type. And if the animal type dot location is our current location, we're gonna spawn the animal. Okay, so let's add this to our chicken coop. And test it. Oh, should be the chicken coop. Don't forget to set your chicken to spawn in the chicken coop. There. So it works. Now we just have to figure out the actual objects to spawn along with the animal behavior. So let's create the animal behavior first. Create a new script. Animal behavior, it's going to inherit from interactable object, as with all things that are interactable. Gonna have a animal relationship state relationship. We need a function to initialize this behavior, node relationship. So when we spawn this whatever object, the spawn manager will tell animal behavior you're supposed to be a chicken named Oliver, for example. And then so when the player interacts with it, you should know that the game knows which animal he's talking to. So overwrite the pickup. Let's check if the relationship is set first. And we should start the. For now, all we're gonna do is start a dialogue. We'll just say animal's name seems happy for now. We'll settle this in another part. Now we need some assets for our chickens. So let's get some Unity stuff. And let's get the farm animals set. Import it. Move this to imported asset. Okay, so let's create the chicken prefab. So over here, we'll find our little chicken. Let's tag its item. Call him chicken. Should take in the animal behavior. And he's going to collider as well. Give him a mesh collider. And create a new folder in our prefabs. Call this animals. And make it our prefab. And now, over in our scriptable object, animal data should record the animal behavior as well. The animal object to spawn. And in resources, animals, make sure you lock this. And just drag this here. Now it will spawn our chicken prefab. Which we'll do over here. First, we need to decide where to spawn it. So how we're gonna do it and just make it spawn all in one place. That would be not very nice. So we're gonna make it spawn randomly around the area. I'm gonna unlock this and have this. We're gonna spawn it based on the floor. Right, it's gonna take reference to the floor object. In this case, it's the dirt. And I'm gonna spawn the animal. So how we're gonna randomize it is we're gonna use a bounds, Unity's bounds, which is taken from the floors, and then we'll take the offset. We set a bunch of offset values. We only need offset X and offset Z since the Y-axis would be constant throughout because we're going to spawn it on the floor. It's gonna be random.range. Gonna be from the furthest end to its opposite end. It's gonna be the same for the Z. And this will be the coordinates where it will spawn. It's gonna be a vector 3. And offset X. And Y would be just the floor's Y position. And now we actually spawn the animal. It's going to be the animal object, spawn point, with its default rotation. And now we load its relationship data to tell it what it is. So it's gonna tell the chicken, for example, okay, your name is Oliver. You're a chicken with this many hearts with the player, blah blah blah. And with that, let's see it in action. Okay, looks like we've got everything. Let's load it in. There, now we have 2 chickens. Jeffrey, William. But they don't save as of yet. So that's our last step, to save the data, which is fairly the same as we always do. So over in game state, game save state, all we need to do is add, you guessed it, relationship list. Oh, don't forget, make this system.serializable. So we can save, of course. And now that it's system.serializable, let's add this to its constructors. And of course, this is going to throw all sorts of errors because we don't the construct set up correctly. No problem. Of the relationships. And that's fixed. And with that, it's going to save our animal relationships. Now we have to settle the loading. Let's go back to our animal stats. And we add a function to load it in. First, we want to check if there's nothing. Just create a new list. Okay, so now that we have that covered, go back to our game state manager and our load function in the relationship stats. We add our animal stat. Load. Save thought animals. So we can name our animals. Something's wrong with the bounds, it seems. Okay, let's test the saving thing. Oh no. Animal data is not serializable. Well, looks like we have to redo the incubation process because of the saving issues. Let's try saving again. Oh, what isn't serializable now? Oh yeah, we forgot about this. We can't serialize scriptable objects. So this should be a string. Okay. So what I just did is I saved the animal type as a string, and now when we want to reference, it just converts it back. Okay, should work now. Serialize everything again. Okay. Let's see if it works. Yes. It works. The only thing is they're spawning, which we will fix in our next episode. Because we will be using nav meshes and everything for our animal behavior. So that's it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, we will see you next time. That's it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed the video. Want to support what we do? You can help us by becoming a patron. This will give you access to the project files for our tutorials, as well as patron-exclusive posts on our blog. Any support you can give will go a long way. Currently, we are making back about 20 cents for every dollar that we put into content creation. So your help will go a long way to help make this a sustainable endeavor. And with that, we'll see you next time.